Welcome to the Men Unplugged show. Get ready to plug in and recharge your life, family, and career while igniting your faith in Christ. Now, here's your host and champion of helping men live with passion and purpose, Jeff Jerina.
Hey, how's it going? Jeff Jerina here, and welcome to episode 49 of the Men Unplugged show. Get ready to ignite as we're about to hit the afterburners. Hey, if you haven't done so already, subscribe, rate, and review the show on iTunes. In just those 15 seconds that it takes to do that, as you hit the pause button right now, you can help us impact the lives of men and their families through this podcast. To find the link for that, just go to our website at menunplugged.net and click that big button that says listen to the podcast. While there, you'll see a list of resources, including my speaking and training forums for your group, church, or event. All right, let's chat with today's featured guest, Taylor Symmank. Taylor, welcome to the show, brother.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Are you ready to recharge?
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
Hey, I love that. Taylor is a record-setting punter for Texas Tech and Big 12 football, as well as a trainer and kicking coach. Formerly with the Minnesota Vikings, Taylor recently signed with the New York Giants. Taylor, take about 60 seconds or so to tell us a little bit about your personal life.
Yeah, so I grew up in the McKinney area. I have a brother and a sister. I'm the oldest of those two. Brother is 23. He graduated from DBU here in Dallas. He was also a kicker. Played at Baylor University for a year, then transferred to go play soccer. Sister is currently at ACU, playing soccer there. And so, and then grew up in a family of mom and dad still together, all that kind of stuff. Great family. And it's just amazing childhood. But yeah, I went to Texas Tech, able to set some cool records out there. And then recently was with the Minnesota Vikings last year and then going to New York this year. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, I tell you what, it sounds like your whole family is into this kicking game. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, from soccer. Growing up playing soccer, I think.
Hey, I love that. My first sport that I played was soccer. I think it's a great sport to get kids in because, now correct me if I'm wrong, but you're building a foundation, a balance in your body that you can just do anything else, I think, in sports.
Absolutely. I mean, you develop just the little motor skills that you do. Like you have to evolve your hands and feet, like just hand-eye coordination every single play, and it has to be fast. Like it's people run at you, you have to use a ball now too. Like I think it's just a very fundamental sport for any sport, really.
I tell you, the toughest coaching gig I've ever had, I coached my daughter's soccer team. Coaching her is the hardest thing to do. I'm going to be honest with you. She's a really good player. I'm going to give her props. Way to go, Kinley. But your kids, they get to a point where they're like, I don't want to hear my dad talking right now. You've told me this over and over again.
Yeah. No, it is a tough deal, and that's why like coaches, like outside of family, are so important because for some reason I did it too myself, and it's even harder because my dad would be like, "Oh yeah, listen to your brother," and she won't even listen to me or things like that.
Right.
So it's got to be almost someone on the outside, which is a crazy deal because a lot of times even your family members have more experience, maybe a coach would. So it's just kind of a weird dynamic, but I mean that's why I guess setting a teamwork that's like that's important.
Yeah. By the way, I want to throw out a quick shout out here to Mark, a good buddy of yours that forwarded me your information. I tell you what, guys, again, if you know somebody that I can talk to, send them this way. And Mark, again, thanks for doing that. Okay, let's talk football real quick. More specifically, your path from receiver to punter. And then we'll roll into our topic about discipline. So my first question for you is, how did you get to be a punter when you were originally a receiver?
Yeah, it's a crazy and I guess funny story too. Is I grew up only kicking. I never really punted in high school or any of that, and I wanted to play receiver, but I grew really late. So my senior year, I was about 150 and about 6 foot. Well, no receivers getting recruited at that height and weight.
Right.
So I was like, okay, well, I know I'm going to grow later. Just as I knew it was going to happen. But it was more like, okay, so I can get into a college for kicking. So I'll go there, go to a school I can kick, and maybe try to grow and work into the receiver deal.
Right.
And so that's why I went to Southern Arkansas first, the D2 school, out in the middle of nowhere in Arkansas. And so I was there for a year, but I was trying to see if I could do both. And I realized at that level, you really couldn't because they're afraid you'd get hurt, you'd miss time. actually kicking, and they didn't have another kicker. So it's like, it would have basically hurt the team if I did get hurt playing receiver. And so I was like, okay, I only have to kick. So then I just shifted my focus. Okay, I'm going to do it. Because my goal as a kid was always go to the NFL.
Right.
But it was to play receiver. And I was like, maybe if I have to kick kind of deal. So I wrote out those goals. I still have the piece of paper when I was a kid when I wrote it out in the summertime.
Wow.
And so when I get there and I realize that I really can't do it both, I was like, okay, well, let's put all my focus into that. And I was like, I'm going to transfer. I know I need to go D1 to our school where I can kind of get promoted, if you will,
right,
and be in an environment that will help just spur me on and keep me going. And so then I left that school, transferred, didn't know where I was going. It was a crazy time. Just knew I couldn't be there because that's not where I needed to be to keep going where I want to go. So I go home, go to college for a semester so I don't get behind on classes. And then I literally have no idea where I'm going to go for school, and just kind of praying, waiting on that right timing in the right school. And then Texas Tech is the only one that reaches out, which I'm forever grateful to them.
Right.
So shout out, guns up. But it was going there ended up just obviously creating what I've been able to do so far. And so, like I said, I'm forever grateful. But once I leave here and go to Texas Tech, I have to redshirt because the way somehow it's like a 4-2-4 rule. They counted Collin College as like a certain school, so I couldn't play originally.
Okay.
So I had to go in a redshirt. And from there, I ended up growing 20 pounds, 2 inches. And so now I'm like the 180 range.
Right.
About 6'2". And so like I'm starting to fill into my body a little bit.
Right.
And so about that time, there's a senior I'm able to split time with that first year I can play at Tech. And then it just kind of goes from there.
Well, I asked you before we got on the show, I said we were just doing mic check, and I've never asked a guest this before. I said, hey, what's your favorite color? I'm like, I don't even know why that came to me. And you said, what color did you say? You remember?
Is it red and black? Yeah.
I said, come on, you got to say that. You're a Red Raider. And you said, no, I'm serious.
Yeah, no, I don't know what it is. And I was never like a Red Raider fan. My cousin was a huge Red Raider fan. But I always did love red and black. I don't know what it was. If you look through my wardrobe or know anybody that knows me, it's like he's always wearing red and black. Like it was just one of those things. And so I don't know, just it worked out perfect because all my clothes were that color.
Well, the alumni, they need to send you some props here for saying that. Hey, me too, because my wife's a Red Raider. All right, what's that like being in the back of the end zone? I watched some of your highlights, and one of those where you were in the back of the end zone, knowing that you've got 11 guys coming at you, right?
Yeah.
They're foaming at the mouth. They get their napkin on. They get the knife and the fork. They're like, dude, I want to get that ball.
Yeah.
What's that like knowing that you've got, how many seconds actually do you have to get it off? And then what are you thinking in that moment?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, you got to be around 2 seconds, no more than 2 seconds from the time the snap to the time you kick.
So you're saying once you get the snap, 2 seconds, or once it is snapped, that whole process is 2 seconds that you got to get the ball kicked?
Yeah, the whole process, like under 2-1 for sure, like from the snap to kick. So it's about 1.3 from the time I catch it to the time I kick it. And then the snap, let's say 0.7, 0.6. So everything is, under 2 seconds. It's that quick. And so I guess for thinking, you really can't think. Because if you do think that's too fast of time, you're going to throw yourself off. So it's just about like little reminders, little keys of this is what I got to do. Stay smooth, stay focused, do what I do. That kind of thing. Because as soon as you're like, I got to do this, that plays over.
That makes me think two things. Don't worry, we're going to get into the topic here, but I'm thinking right now, 2 seconds to me seems really, really fast, but yet you see punts blocked all the time.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the times the punts are blocked from the side.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow. I guess I've never timed that. And then the other thing I'm thinking of is you have to angle it. You've got to get distance. I mean, so there's a lot of repetition. And so my question here is, in the game, let's say pregame, how many punts are you hitting in that pregame?
Just pregame alone?
Yes, sir.
It depends on each game. So if like there's a lot of weather factors, then more than normal. Just kind of get used to the wind. What's it doing? Going both ways. Like, is it swirling? Is it coming right in my face? Is it going across me? And getting used to certain drops based on the wind.
Right.
The wind play. And so, it just depends. Maybe it's 20, maybe it's 35, maybe it's 30 tops. So it's just, it's the fact of the wind, really.
Well, you know why I asked that question? Because I was setting up this right here. There is a college record, NCAA record, that your school and my wife's school, Texas Tech, is part of. And I don't know if you know this, but here it is. In 1939, the Red Raiders and Centenary combined for the most punts in NCAA football history. How many do you think there were? Can't look at my notes.
In
one game.
In one game.
Just take a guess.
Let's say 10?
77.
77?
77. That's right. Did you hear that? 77 punts in a game in 1939. 67 of those, Taylor, came on the first down.
Really?
So what it was like this massive rainstorm that made conditions so bad that the teams were trying to get the other team to fumble. So they were just punting it. And so the game ended in a 0-0 tie. And, the Tech punter has the most yards, I think, ever in a game at 1,318. 1,318 punting yards on just a game.
That's incredible.
How would you like to have that stat?
That would be awesome. A lot of practice in there.
Okay, so on that note, what's the most yards you've had in a game?
Ooh. I don't know actual yard counts, but I know averages. I guess my last game in college was at 8 punts, 50.1 average. So
wow.
I don't know the
calculations. That's like 400 yards.
Something like that. Yeah.
That's really good. That's really good. That's like the length of 4 football fields. Okay, so let's go back to this right here. When you shifted from being a receiver to a punter, do you think your ability to stay disciplined and set goals was key in that transition?
Absolutely. And I'm forever grateful for going that receiver route early on, just because all the things that I did in order to kind of keep up, because I hadn't grown yet. So everything I was putting in was trying to keep up with everybody else. Mm-hmm. And so all that stuff I was learning, all those motor skills I was adding to my game was just going to help me when I kicked. And it has helped me. So all that time was never wasted. And all that, just the dedication, the goals, the extra time I put in that was required, I just transferred it over. Say, okay, well, I'm doing all the same stuff. Now I'm just going to shift it to this.
Right.
So it was very, very easily just transferable, which makes it nice.
So be more specific here. What were some of the steps that you took during that time that you felt, okay, this is going to help me on this transfer here? And then how does that help you, and it can help the listener right now in everyday life?
Yeah, so for me, when I was back, right before I left to go start punting, I got together with my grandfather who actually was a coach for the Cowboys during the era with Tom Landry, and he was a strength coach. And so he's won a couple of Super Bowls and things like that. And he actually played running back and punted some growing up. And so for me, I've never punting before. It was like the brand new thing. I was like, okay, well, I had to get together with him, and we would go out 5 days a week and punt for, hour and a half every single day until I started to get it. And so kind of the same way with receiver, that's what I did every day. Me and my buddy would go train after practice, that kind of thing, just because you're not going to necessarily get to work on your craft or your skill set during a team oriented practice necessarily, unless you have the few plays that you have. So, I just transferred to, 5 days a week over the summer every day and kind of get me ready. And then I just kept doing that once I got there as well.
Well, what I hear there is a lot about discipline is repetition. We have to get in this mode of we're doing this over and over again. And I think for me, one of the biggest disciplines, and I don't do it every day, but when I do, it just makes the rest of my day so much better. And I know we talk about it all the time, and that is setting your first moments with the Lord in the morning. That to me is the biggest discipline I think that we can do. So let's drill down a bit more on this topic here, Taylor, about discipline. And I want to know, when you talk to kids and when you're coaching them right now about discipline, what do you actually mean by that? I mean, that is a big term there. It's very broad.
Right.
So what does that look like to those kids and for us as men of God?
Yeah. So I think discipline it can tie into habits, it can tie into consistency, it can tie into basically the hunger that fuels that. So the easiest way, the first step you can take is goal setting, because you can't be disciplined if you don't know what you're going toward.
Right.
It's like the whole thing with without a vision, people perish. If you don't know to be disciplined about how you're supposed to be disciplined towards something, or actually know which way you're going to be disciplined to what, right? And so otherwise you're just moving, and movement doesn't always equal progress, right?
Right.
And so
say that again.
Movement doesn't always equal progress.
I like that.
Yeah. So if we're not, that's why I like to always start with goal setting with young kids, is because most of them say, I want to be faster or stronger. But they don't know what that looks like. What do I do? Like they don't know what to do. And so it's just, okay, well, if that's what your goal is, how many pounds do you want to gain? What speed do you want to run, or how many, whatever the measurement is for that, so they can see an actual number and say, oh, did I reach that after that year of training? Did I miss it? How much was I off? And they can see, did my training work? Did it not work? Because like a lot of things, if we don't measure it, we can't manage it, right? Because if we're not going to able to like see that it was a result, like the result what I wanted, or was it not? I don't know. So that's why I start with goals. So I help them get specific. So, and I'm a big detailed guy. So I'll start with like whatever, and I do this for myself, not only for them, but for myself as well. I'll go big picture. Like, what do you want to accomplish like in life? And then I'll go down to, okay, what do you want to do this year? Well, what do you want to do? If that's what you want to do this year, what do you have to do this month? And then if that's what you want to do this month, what do you have to do this week? And so then I get down to okay, if this is this week, what are you going to do each and every day? And so now it's like, okay, now, because a lot of times we get caught thinking that this big goal out there is so far away and that it will just come as we go. But if we're not intentional about it, we'll show up at the time we need to be ready and not. And then like, well, I guess it wasn't for me sometimes, right? But if we would have been working on it when we get there, that's going to help us be able to stay in that place. And so it's just one of those things, if we can constantly put every day back, stacking it on top of each other by the little disciplines, the little habits, and it becomes who you are now. It's not necessarily someone you're trying to be, because initially that's what it's going to be. It's like, oh, I got to try to do this. And then sooner or later, it's just a habit. And then we get to a point where it's like, okay, I don't have to try. I just wake up, I do this. So we did like wake up in the morning, starting with your time with the Lord. Like that becomes a consistent habit to where no matter what, this is my must. I'm going to do it. And we end up doing our musts. Like, so if we make it a must in our life, then we'll do it. We'll make time for it. We'll literally schedule it out if we have to. We'll get it done. But if it's just one of those like wishes or wants, it's totally different, because wants are convenient based. Well, if it's convenient, then I'll make time for it. Oh, today was busy, I couldn't do it. But if it was a must, then it's totally different, because now you're like, okay, well, I'm going to have to wake up early, I guess, and do it, because that's what I'm going to do. So I think talking about discipline, it starts with knowing what direction you want to go, and then tagging those little actions on to ultimately reach you to that goal.
I really like that. I really do. And what I was thinking of right here in terms of spiritual discipline, I was thinking of the verse Joshua 1:8, and it says, and I'm sure you know the verse, "This book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night. Then, by observing it, then you'll be prosperous and successful." And so what stood out to me right here was to meditate on the word. And you can't meditate on the word unless you're in it every day.
Right.
That is so key. Okay, so if you're right now listening and you're at this point where you're like, you know what? I'm struggling with this thing of discipline. I would say take some cues right now from what Taylor was saying and just start out with the big picture goal and then just narrow it down. I guess that what I'm looking at is an upside down triangle. Narrow it down to smaller and smaller goals until you get to what you need to do on a consistent basis. What are 2 or 3 things that you feel are absolutely essential in maintaining a life of discipline? And I want to add here, joyful discipline, because you know what, guys? We've been given freedom in Jesus Christ, and we don't have to sit here and feel shackled. He's taken off our chains.
I think one is you have to have a constant state of hunger. And what I mean by that is kind of like, I guess nowadays the word they use is like a growth mindset. And so it's just constantly wanting to basically see all what God has for you. Like basically saying and like if you're going to pray in a sense of like, God, I want everything you have for me and nothing less, right? And a lot of times I feel like we get complacent with some success and like, okay, well, this is cool what God's given me. Yeah, but what if God had more than that? Because God is beyond our even imagination or our thought of what we could accomplish. He's beyond that. He's putting it together on a bigger scale. And so for us to even stop at just what we can imagine is almost like I wouldn't say disrespectful to God, but it's almost like I could have done so much more for you kind of deal. Because if you would have been willing, this door was open, but he can't make us do something. There's free will involved, right? And so I think that's why hunger would have to be my first point, because without it, that's what keeps us going when things get tough, and when things are going great, what keeps us going for even more of ourselves.
Right.
And then I think the other thing is kind of tags off that is consistency. And that kind of goes with discipline as well. Just making sure that you're maintaining that constant discipline, a habit, that hunger every single day, and not allowing, let's say, basically take a vacation on yourself, right? A lot of times we get like, I've been good for a couple of times, and then we get caught off guard, and it's been like a week or two, and then I have to restart all over again. It's a lot harder. And so especially when you have like families, you have a lot of stuff going on, now you have to manage so many other different things.
Right.
So if you can get yourself in line, that's only going to just bless every other area as well. But I think those are probably the biggest three, I think. Leading with that is hunger, of course.
I like that one point that you just shared right there, and that is don't take a vacation on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of us become complacent, and we don't continue to push forward for those things that we know God has called us to do, or that he has for us. And maybe, I don't know, maybe you can respond to this. I think a lot of times we get complacent when we see things are tough and they don't just happen right away. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I think, and that just goes back to understanding, having joy in the process. But it takes a perspective shift, right? Because if we think, because what we tend to, even the way we view society or people that are famous or anybody, it's like they don't see the hard work that was put in. They see like the photo, they see whatever on social media of like they've arrived. Like they don't see like that grind that no one saw because no one's recording it, right?
Right.
And so I feel like that right there that's what makes people, the process. And the thing is, we're constantly always in a process, but we don't let's say that person now makes it big or whatever they want to do, they start enjoying the process now, right? Well, if they would have enjoyed the process the same way, it's just a perspective shift, just earlier. So if they would have seen, okay, well, this is what I have to become, this person that I want to become. Now you basically shifting it off of this idea or goal we have to me. Like I'm growing myself, and that should be exciting, right? That now I just wake up and this is who I am. I don't have to want to be someone. I am that person, and that should be motivating. That should be exciting to you. So that makes the process a lot more fun. Makes it a lot more engaging to you, because a lot of times the journey can be long. Let's be honest; it can be a couple of years even. But if you don't enjoy it every day, then when that time does come, when you're at the top of the mountain or wherever you're at, then just becomes so much more rewarding. And you grow a lot more when you're in a state of like, oh, like I'm eager, I'm hungry, I'm wanting more than like, this sucks. I hope this is over, be over. Like your whole demeanor, your whole body language, your mind is not open to growth in a sense.
Well, right there, Moses, he had to wait 40 years before he could get to his mission.
Right.
And so just right here, Philippians 1:6 says that he who began a good work in you will continue to perfect it until the day of Christ Jesus. Tell me, what is maybe one or two resources other than this goal-setting list? What are one or two resources that you felt have helped you to stay disciplined?
Yeah, I think nowadays it's kind of shifting because everything's going online now. And I would say, especially with the kids I meet with, YouTube's huge, right? And there's so much information that you can watch of interviews or speeches that you can pull up and watch hours on hours on hours.
This podcast.
Right, exactly. Like stuff you can pull up online anywhere in the world, pull it up, listen to it. And sometimes you don't even you just need Wi-Fi, right? And you can have it. And so, but for me, outside of YouTube, because most people know what that is and how you can use it, is books. I started reading a lot recently. Actually on track to read 26 this year. And so with that, it opened up a whole, because what I started to understand was I was never a reader growing up. Like I was that kid, like, man, like I don't want to be that guy just sitting there reading. It just looks like, I don't know what it was, like this dogma I have toward it. And I'm just,
hey, holler. Me the same way.
Yeah, so it was one of those things where it just didn't look fun. It wasn't fun. But now when I realize what reading basically is taking the successes or things that people have learned for over a lifetime, let's say 40, 50 years, and condensing it down into however long it takes to read a book. So like say a week. Well, you have 40 years of experience in 1 week, and you can take that and apply it to your life, so you don't have to go through the 40 years he went through and apply it now. And I was like, this is amazing. I'm getting free let's make $20 for a book, right?
Right.
Like maybe 30 at the most. So you're like $30 for 40 years of experience. Hey, sign me up, right?
Absolutely.
And so once I started to realize that, I was like, man, I just got to start reading more, especially stuff I wanted to know more about, but I didn't know who to go to. And there was no one like, hey, we're doing this. It's like I can buy a book off the internet or Amazon or whatever, or listen to a podcast, and it'd be like, this is exactly what I need to know, or, oh, that makes a great question. And then I go on and learn something else. So it's the constant growth factor.
Right, exactly.
But I think those are the two big ones for me is YouTube and reading, along with obviously just the physical stuff, but usually that's harder to get.
Right.
So, yeah, I'd say those are the big two.
I like that. And hey, if you don't like reading, you don't have the time, other than listening to the podcast, here's what you can do. Just go to menunplugged.net/book, that's BOOK, and you can get a free 30-day trial and a free audiobook. Guys, I would tell you right now to do that. And you know what? If you don't like it, you just cancel it, and then you're just not charged. That's the way it works. So, but you will get a free month trial and the audiobook. All right, guys, I'm getting some great stuff here. I hope you are too. Let's take a quick break. We're going to hear a quick message, and when we come back, we're going to hit the Supercharged Round with Taylor Symmank, punter for the New York Giants. Stay up to date on everything that we're doing here at Men Unplugged for free by subscribing to our weekly email list. As an added bonus, I'll send you a free PDF copy of my book, 10 Steps to Power and Purpose. And as I chat with other top Christian leaders every week, giving you what I hope is biblical wisdom and practical tips to succeed in life, I want to ask you for your prayers and help getting the word out about the show. All you do is share the website or any one of our podcast episodes to someone else you know every single week. You can also support the show financially on our website at menunplugged.net/give. All right, I'm back here with Taylor Symmank. Taylor, you ready to rock the Supercharged Round?
Yes, sir.
How did you come to know Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior?
Yeah, so for me, thankfully, it started at a young age, and I was in 5th grade, and it was one of those moments where you're in church and you're constantly there, your parents are there, so on. But like at the altar call, for some reason, it's just, like you get this thing inside your chest, just, I got to move, right? And it was never like my parents leading or anything like that. I actually just got up and like started sprinting down the aisle and went because we were in a huge church, and so we were at the kind of like the top. So I started just going down the stairs, running to the front, and then I look over, and mom's like, "Oh, we got to go with them." They start freaking out and trying to chase me, and so it was just one of those things. Thankfully, at that age, that it kind of clicked for me. I was always our family was always in church. We were always there. We were always taking notes. We were always listening, anything like that. And I guess it's just one of those moments, just like why have I not done this? Why have I not figured it out? Kind of deal. And it was just one of those moments, just like, okay, this is it. This is make a choice. And since then, it's been obviously a growth phase of kind of learning and all that kind of stuff. And it's been amazing because, and I look back, growing in that relationship and having that relationship at a young age, it saved me from a lot of stuff in my childhood, or could have gone through, if that makes sense.
Right.
Because on the track, I was always a good kid, but there was obviously some things at that time I was like, I could have gone a bunch of different ways, and that kind of almost like shaped me and molded me to where I was like, that's not acceptable. I can't do that.
Right.
But it was more not necessarily like, okay, push you guys away. It was just more like it almost gave me standards. It gave me like, this is what I got to do, and this is what I believe in, and I'm sticking to it, kind of deal. And then from then on, just I would say it's stacking upon a lot of stuff I learned from that, but I'm very thankful.
That's cool. Isn't grace amazing?
Oh, it's one of the greatest things. It's almost hard to explain just the vastness of it and how like amazing it is. But once you realize it, once you see it yourself, it's amazing. Yeah. So
Taylor, what was the best moment so far of your football career?
Okay. So there's two. And the reason I say two is because, I'll just explain and you'll see. The first one was in college, And it was after I got hurt my senior year. I was doing really well leading to the season. I missed 5 games, and I have basically 2 games left in my senior season, kind of leading into the draft and all that kind of stuff. And it was the last game against LSU in our bowl game. And it was kind of like that last moment where I got to make a stamp on like my career at Texas Tech, and to prove to everybody in the country, including the NFL coaches, that I was still ready to play and I wasn't hurt. And so I go out and have actually one of my best games I did at Texas Tech, as far as that was an 8-punt, 50-yard average.
Oh, wow.
And so it was just one of those moments where it was like, man, I finished it strong kind of deal. And it was like a stamp of, okay, I'm people know, like as far as the coaches in the NFL, like, no, I'm ready. I'm not kind of just flaked out still. And then the second one, obviously, is the first punt in the NFL. And it was in Minnesota at Buffalo. It's first punt. We were kind of backed up on like, I guess the 30 or whatever. And I forget who the returner was. I don't know if it was McCoy or not. But so we're the 30. Beautiful day. First off, Buffalo usually is windy, and it was a perfect night. So it was awesome. And so we punt it, hit it pretty nice, goes over his head. He leaves it, and it like bounces on the 10, and just, I thought it was going to roll in the end zone. It stops, sits. So it was like a 60-yard punt, like first punt. And I was like, it was just one of those, like the first punt you have is always the most memorable, I think, because it was like the first time I was in like the arena, in the moment, and it was like, this is for real, and it just happened. And so it was one of those probably my 2 moments.
You were like, thank you, Lord.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that was a God moment right there. Okay, so let's turn the tide here. What was the worst moment you can talk about on this one, your career or in your life?
Probably the worst moment would have to be, okay, so I come back after that last game at LSU, do really well, and then I go out to 2 mini camps with teams that like what I do, but they're basically afraid that I'm still hurt. And so basically all the other teams are the same way. And so I have to sit out a year, basically waiting for myself, or waiting for them to basically put trust in me again, if that makes sense.
Right.
And so I'm sitting at home after going to college for 4 years and have all this great kind of expectation to go to the NFL and go through the system kind of deal. And now I'm back at home training where I grew up. And so it was just one of those like shocking moments of like, man, like, was that it? Like, that's all it is. And so that was like a really dark time for me, because it was like, this was my dream. This was my goal. That's what I was after. And now it's like, we don't know if you're healthy. I'm like, I was just there punting for you, and I was just fine. But some teams want to have surgery and all that kind of stuff. I was like, no, I don't need it. But it was a whole big ordeal, which ultimately later they came back. It's like, yeah, we I don't know why we said that. We don't need to do it, kind of deal. And I was like, okay, well, thankfully, I'm glad I didn't get it. But it was a whole process in which it just kind of, it was just one of those things when you're hurt, or injured in their eyes. There's nothing you can do physically. So you punt lights out, you do amazing. Well, there's nothing there's not any control anymore.
Right.
And so it's just kind of one of those things that's out of your control. So you do everything you can, prepare, you're ready, you do really well, but it's just not time. And it was just one of those things, like that would be like the worst, because it's like, man, like I was ready, I was doing my thing, I did it better than a lot of other guys, but it just wasn't the time, I guess. And so that was probably one of the worst phases of my life. Yeah.
Doesn't sound like there's a lot of forgiveness in the NFL when you're trying to make a team. And right now with the Giants, there's 2 punters, 2 kickers, and you got to roll down to the 53 spot, and you go to 1 punter and 1 kicker. So that's interesting. You have to constantly stay disciplined to do your best. Absolutely. I mean, week in and week out.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So what is God showing you right now?
Kind of a bunch of different things. I think kind of what we alluded to earlier is one of constantly remaining hungry, because it's so easy, like I said as well, being complacent with certain level of success or certain level of exposure or whatever it may be. Like, oh man, I'm actually doing it. Like, and not letting myself stay there and get so wrapped up in the moment. Like, there is the point of there is the moments for celebrating, and we have to do that. But I think too, if we stay there too long, then it's almost like, I like to illustrate it to like a mountain. If we're all basically constantly on a climb, and it's never over till we basically die, right? So there's constantly room for growth. And as soon as we reach a plateau or a great success, we sit there. Well, the mountain's still going up. So the longer we sit there, the more elevation happens, and we start to build a home. We start to get safe and comfortable.
Right.
And the way our bodies work for survival, like we're survival creatures, is we link to familiarity. And so as soon as I become too familiar in one area or too comfortable, then it becomes like I don't need to go anywhere. I can do what I'm doing.
Right.
Same old thing. But the thing about the world's constantly changing. So if I'm not constantly moving forward or growing in different ways, I'm going to get left behind. And so it's the whole thing with punting. It's like the whole like Australian thing coming over now. Like if we used to not really be able to, or didn't really do it, but now you kind of have to evolve that part of your game. Well, if you never do it, then it's like, well, can you Australian kick? And they're like, no. I'm like, okay, well, we're looking for someone that can. So you constantly evolve.
So what do you mean by that? I know Australian rules football, but what is the difference between a regular punt, like what we're used to in American football? What do you mean they want you to Australian rules football? What does that mean? It's
just you drop it differently and it spins like a kickoff. So the idea is when it hits the ground, it either bounces back or bounces to the sides.
So you're getting more distance.
It's more like when you're saying the ball's at the 50-yard line and you're going into the end zone and you don't want to touch back. And so you want them to basically stay within the 10.
Oh,
try
okay.
And down it because you can swing basically full swing, but it won't go as far because it's spinning like this. It's not going aerodynamic.
Wow, that's interesting. I had no idea that it was that specific or strategic. I really didn't know.
Yeah.
That's technical. It really is. Okay, so I want to ask you here, what is a blind spot or an Achilles heel that you feel like, you know what, this thing holds me back from time to time?
For me, I'm a very driven person. Like I can get so focused and dialed in on my goal that I don't sometimes take the time to not necessarily look up, but maybe involve others as much as I should.
Right.
And so I would say, and that kind of goes into communicating because they may not know or me reaching out more kind of deal. And so for me, that's what it is take time to bring others with me even more than I am. And I make an effort to do it, but I could do it even more on the journey and just like also to giving back. And that's why I make it such a big push for me because I constantly have to make time for it. Because if I don't, I'll naturally just be like, okay, train. What else can I do to work on my craft? Right. But I'll never make time to give back, to make an effort to grow the generation below me, like what someone did for me. Kind of like they paid it forward. I want to do the same.
Right.
And so if I'm not basically seeking that and going after that, it will constantly slide out of my vision or my sight. And I won't do it just naturally.
Right.
So it's a constant discipline. It's a constant effort to stay in tune to being self-aware of like, okay, am I doing this? And that's why I like to measure stuff and be detailed. Right. Because if I know, if I'm not doing it, I'm like, oh, did I meet my goals for, oh, I didn't. Oh, I got to get on this next month. And that's why I think like basing it down to the week is because you have 52 weeks in a year. Well, if you check your goals once a year, you get one chance to fix it. Well, if you check it every week, you get 52. To fix it for the year. And a lot of times we get caught thinking that like life as a cycle goes up and down, but if we're gradually moving up, kind of like the stock market, if that makes sense, like moving constantly up and down, but on a gradual scale over years, it's going up, then that's how our life is. But a lot of times we think that it's only about, it's important, the daily decisions, but sometimes we get so wrapped up in that decision rather than the trajectory of where we're going. And so we get caught and we get stuck on that one day's decision rather than what we could have accomplished that year. But I think that's why we need both. So yeah.
Man, Taylor's dropping some golden nuggets of wisdom here, guys. Seriously. This is a punter. He's dropping some golden nuggets of wisdom, man. You're like dropping them right at the 1 yard line, right? So there's no touchback. All right. Outside of the Bible, what is one book that you'd recommend and why? And look, you have 26 almost to choose from right now from this year.
Right. I think for me, if you're an athlete, I think there's a book called Relentless by Tim Grover. It's very, very good. It's just he was basically the private coach, if you will, of Michael Jordan in his career.
Oh, okay.
And so Michael Jordan wouldn't let him train anybody else until basically retired. And now he's trained Kobe, he's trained D Wade, he's trained a bunch of other countless athletes, and that's what he does now. And so he's basically kind of he's a mental guy, but he's also physical. He does all of it. And so it was just kind of cool because you get to see the inside scoop of, Michael Jordan, one of the greatest athletes, and Kobe Bryant. You can see all these people of like, because the game is, or anything, life in general, a lot of times is 80% mental and 20% just actual physical work. But if you can't naturally or get yourself in that mindset or that state, if you will, to actually do it, then that action is kind of pointless because now you're just moving and there's no progress, right? And so it just kind of gives you the inside look of like how they think, how do they look at things and certain things like that. So that's, I would say that'd probably be number one, especially for athletes, because it kind of gives you that perspective.
Well, when you said right there, mental coach, one of the guys on the show was Dr. David Cook, sports psychologist, the guy that wrote and produced the movie 7 Days in Utopia.
Oh, wow.
He was there with David Robinson and the San Antonio Spurs on their first 2 seasons that they won those championships. I think that's episode 15 and 16. That was a 2-part interview. Is there one parting tip of wisdom that you can provide our listeners with? And then, hey, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah. I think I love to harp on hunger because a lot of times I feel like even at a young age, we don't know, I'll put it in different demographics or different age categories, is when we're young, a lot of times we don't know what we're going after, so we don't need to be hungry for, right? And we think about even just physically how our bodies work. Like we feed ourselves and that's how we grow. Well, we got to do the same thing with our mind and everything else. So if we're not constantly putting ourselves under stress, not bad stress, like stress like when you work out, you put weight on, that's how you grow. So like you constantly grow and learn in different areas at a young age you don't know, then I would say it's just hunger. So like grow. If I boil it down to one word, because I could get so many different ways with this, is just constantly stay self-aware, one, and be detailed with yourself to where you can see like, am I reaching or am I going the right direction? Because a lot of times we mistake movement for progress. And that's the biggest thing that happens that I see from no matter who I meet with or talk to. It's like, yeah, I'm doing all these things, but I'm like, what's your goal? And they're like, well, it's to do this over here. I'm like, well, then why are you doing this? And it's one of those things like your clarity. Get clarity on who you are and what you want to accomplish. I think it's the biggest thing you can do.
Well, you've said that twice now, movement without progress. And both times you said it, you know what the illustration that came to my mind is a hamster. On those hamster wheels. Yep. Boy, they love going on those things, but they're going nowhere.
Right. And it's a frustrating place to be.
It is. If you're in that situation, God has a plan for you, and He's going to get you out. I would say right now, just go to the Lord in prayer, dive into His Word, seek other brothers, seek someone else that can help you come up with some goals. All right, Taylor, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Way to rock the mic, just dropping down these golden nuggets of wisdom.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it.
All right, that wraps up today's podcast. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to our email list at menunplugged.net to get our weekly updates to make sure you don't miss a single podcast episode. Until next time, stay plugged in and recharged. God bless.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. There's plenty more to see at menunplugged.net, including key resources and ways to engage with Jeff in his training and speaking forums. While there, don't forget to subscribe and receive a free gift. We look forward to you joining us next time here on the Men Unplugged Show.